All right, Derek, it's been a day.
It has been a day. That was something else, man. What a show.
Let me ask you this. So I was on the mic today, like the live mic, and as you can hear, it's affected me a lot. You do this a lot yourself every time there's a comp, and your voice is never raspy. What kind of tricks are you doing? What kind of witchcraft have you got going on that you like? Your voice is fine.
I'll be honest with you. It's different in the broadcast booth than it is on the live mic. On the live mic, you're responsible for hyping the crowd, and it's way more yelling. I do that for Crankworks, and it's 9 days straight, and I definitely get absolutely thundered by the end of it. My voice hardly works at all.
Right.
Especially when you get locals doing well, as we often do in Whistler. So on the broadcast, it's not quite as yelly as it is for the live crowd. Keeping everybody engaged and in the mood. I mean, I'm trying to, definitely get that across to the audience at home. But it's not as hard on the voice.
I guess you're not really trying to yell over anybody as well. You're like having a conversation in a room.
Yeah, it's like a nice cup of tea, like NPR. We're just casually talking about the smooth jazz of Freeride.
Yeah, Stan Ray with a big stomp to tomahawk. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. We're getting ahead of ourselves there. No, but my voice is just doing all right. What a day. On T1 South at Kicking Horse. Once again, the backup venue provides. It's a second choice, to be totally honest, at Kicking Horse. OZONE is the primary comp face for the Freeride World Tour, but definitely a solid day on T1 South today.
No, absolutely. So it's fun. So we're here in Golden, second event of the year after, of course, the first two in the Pyrenees being canceled, them adding the Verbier Pro, bringing it back to Golden for its seventh year, sixth running, because they didn't run during COVID. But they have had 7 events here.
Yeah, the first year we were here, there were 2. They did have a makeup event, so they used
the
OZONE.
Event.
That's right. Yeah, they used OZONE, and then they used the other side of the Terminator face, the north side, and that one's way too rocky right now. So definitely exciting to see the community get behind this event. The community of Golden is so stoked on the Freeride World Tour. The opening ceremonies last night, the public was in there, all these kids getting their posters signed, people just fired up on it, and it's really cool to see how the town and the ski resort back this event year after year. They're so into it, so behind it. It is the only North American stop on the tour, and the crowds were huge. I mean, you were leading them.
I was trying to. Myself and legendary Brett Tippie, snowboard, or basically mountain bike, freeride mountain bike legend. We were joking that he was a legend, and he's like, well, now I've moved into an icon. I was like, well, you're kind of old enough to be more of a myth now, Brett Tippie. You kind of like that one. So Brett Tippie is the director of Good Times. I was lucky to do a podcast with Brett for a year, the Brett Tippie podcast. So it was his show. I produced the back end of it. And so we've worked together for a year. So that was just natural. And Kicking Horse hasn't really had like a dedicated fan zone up until this point. Ozone Face is kind of down in that hole, down in the bowl. I was up on, a lot of people hang out on the ridge while they're watching. Ozone's called Redemption Ridge. Team 1, which we did a couple years ago, we had a good crowd show up. Kind of lends a little bit better to crowd viewing. So I kind of planted a bug in the ear of the powers that be here at Kicking Horse. I'm like, hey, you should create some sort of a fan experience that they can choose to go to or not. So I came back at the beginning of this season. They're like, oh yeah, we're on it. And I talked to them the other day. He's like, yeah, we're going to have beers. We're going to have snacks. I got a little fire pit. We had music, DJ, a mic booth, and a lot of people came out. And man, did I have a good time today.
Yeah, we could hear you guys from our spot.
For real?
It sounded like a good time. I think the mics were picking up some of the party, so it was great. So yeah, it's just so great to see how Kicking Horse and Golden could just get behind this, and really exciting to see the crowd absolutely heaving down there. The sun was out. If you were in the right spot. I was not in the right spot to be in the sun, but it was nice to see the crowds. We got to see it on the live stream a few times. There were tons of people down there, and especially supportive of the Canadian riders, which was cool.
Right, and you mentioned cold. It was cold today. It wasn't quite, it was a little bit, it was pretty bad in the morning. We were there for about an hour into the comp before the sun hit us, but I rewatched the comp directly after. So those of you listening, it's 6:30. It's been about 3 hours since the comp ended. You've gone back to your hotel. I've cleaned up this one. We've set up. We're like, let's just get her done.
Oh, yeah. While it's fresh, for sure.
While it's fresh. So I rewatched while I was like organizing the room here. And then you and Tom, when you first came on the broadcast, it was like full on, like your breath was heavy in the air. I'm like, it is cold where they're sitting.
Yeah. We're down in the shade, and we were in the shade the whole time. But whatever. You know what? You dress warm. You put on all your puffy layers, and it was fine. We were okay. But just what an unbelievable show. Golden and Kicking Horse Resort delivering the goods once again. And it's been so fun. Peak Performance put on a little activation last night. They brought Yu Sasaki in from Revelstoke with his food truck. For those of you that don't know Yu, he is a Peak Performance rider and a former Freeride World Tour rider. He was a standout athlete on the tour, and now he's living in Revelstoke he's got a couple of kids, and he's having a lovely little family life, still crushing it on skis. But he brought the food truck over the Rogers Pass, and we had a great time at the White Tooth Brewery. So it was awesome to see Yu Sasaki back with the family. Just an incredible experience all around.
His fried chicken concoctions, like the chicken karage, like the boneless chicken nuggety things with like 4 or 5 different spices and sauces, every single one of them was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, better, each one better than the last.
Can you park this in my backyard, please? Or park this in my driveway? So it was really great seeing him, and it was great to see that Peak Performance brought you out, keep it in the family, support their own. Because you is a great mentor for some of the Japanese rider. I was talking to Tenla about you. And Tenla actually was in there serving the food up.
Yeah, it's so cool how he was just taking him under his wing and showing him the ropes and kind of giving him some advice about how to be an athlete on the tour. And Tenla's definitely taking it to heart because he is crushing it out there. Absolutely.
So you mentioned we're on the T1 South Face. We did that there 2 years ago, and it was fun. A lot of people were like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. This isn't going to be good. Wei Tianho came through, did the Forerunner. I don't know who was telling me this the other day, but I've said this many times. Wei Tianho came and ran as a Forerunner, and it completely changed the mood that year. Yeah. Someone actually said that the other day. I can't remember who it was. I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't just me that thinks that.
Yeah, everybody thought that. And it's cool to see now this full circle complete. Wei Tian being the Forerunner a couple of years ago and now in the start gate as a tour rider. That was definitely pretty special.
And we didn't hear any of the grumbling or the griping or oh, we got to do it over here. Not really as much. There's no matter what event you do, no matter where it is, no matter what the snow condition, there's always a little bit of grumbling. There's always a bit of griping, but I think that's just people's way of coping and getting used to it. It's not like they're really upset with what's going on. It's you're going to complain a little bit about everything. You've got all this energy building up. I think you just need a way to express it.
Yeah, and for some context, the OZONE face was about as close to unrideable as it gets. Lolo and the guide team went up there on Monday and rode it. And they said it was okay at the top, breakable crust in the middle, unpredictable breakable crust. And then at the bottom, under all the cliffs, were roller balls from that warm weather that we had a couple weeks ago that had just peeled off the face, landed there, and then frozen. And not just frozen, but frozen in place everywhere, from sort of watermelon to microwave. I don't know what else I can compare it to, but big blocks of ice frozen
medium
to the ground.
size boulder.
Yeah, exactly. So they easily called it off. They said, this is not happening. There's no way we can use this when every single air has giant frozen ice chunks frozen to the ground underneath. So, and it was actually a little bit deceiving because it did snow a bit 2 nights ago, and it kind of just covered enough of it to make it look kind of good. And a few of the riders who had arrived a little bit later were looking at Ozone going, what, or why are we over there? And Lolo Bess was like, no, you don't know. And for those of you that don't know Lolo, he is the most recklessly positive guy out there. So when he says something is bad, you know it's bad. So Lolo definitely making the right call. We got onto T1 South, and it was a solid show.
Well, yeah, and it worked out really well. Not as... Because I remember that last time we did it, it turned into a freestyle fiesta. And I was kind of expecting that this year. But looking at the face, it wasn't quite as filled in as 2 years ago. A lot more of those Purcell mountain snow sharks were just lurking. And there's a lot of trees in that area.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the main things, is just little treetops that are usually covered that were just out enough to cause problems, to be able to like direct you away from where if you wanted to hit a feature, the natural run out well, you can't do that anymore. So they had to a lot of the riders had to get really creative.
Yeah, the trees and the sharks definitely having a say in the event today. One of the most exciting things to me, yesterday we had three forerunners dropping different lines, giving the riders a look at the snow conditions, and then they give their feedback. And J-Raw Inasitsky, talk about getting the crowd fired up. He crushed the forerun. Everybody was just like cheering and clacking their poles together. He went so hard. Definitely did not take it easy. He put himself right into the exposure.
Right at the top of that cliff. I was like, did he just hung himself up? I'm like, please don't just hang. And then he sent.
Yeah.
He sent it. He was just hanging out for a minute.
Oh, it was so sick to see that. And he was just like, he was frothing at the end. He was like, that was so fun. He got like pitted multiple times. Big face shots with the fresh snow.
I got a bunch of photos all zoomed in of just him like right mid pit. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was so exciting to see. And J-Rock coming out, and maybe there were some questions like, really, a guy Nositsky on that face? Well, he answered all of those questions and more, because he slayed that forerun, and it was great to see the tour kind of take a chance on a guy that they didn't really know. They knew him from social media and stuff. Take a chance on it and have it just pay off.
Do you know how that came about at all?
No, I don't. They just told me that it was happening, and I was like, hell yeah. And then he delivered, above and beyond. It was so sick to see. And
pretty impressive.
Yeah, really cool.
All right, so we're back here in Golden. We kind of covered what was going on this week. It was nice to have a competition where they didn't have to rush. They didn't have to push the event window up. They didn't have to push it back. They didn't have to rush it to the first couple days. They got here and were able to run through the program with their partners. The events like the brewery, the opening night at the brewery. They had
the opening ceremonies at the Civic Center, all of those things going on schedule.
Yep.
And minus the venue change, which happened immediately when upon arrival after they rode OZONE for the first time. It was normal. It was nice to have a normal comp.
Yeah, and then it's great for the community here as well. Like I think it shows with the turnout that we had today. It was wild.
Yeah, it was firing up there.
I really wanted, so we've talked about Bakira and how amazing that was. I wanted to. I guess my goal was to rival that. I don't know if it rivaled that, but for a small little mountain town, Golden turned out.
Yep. Yeah. Good on you, Golden. We'll keep it going. Every single time we come here, it gets a little bit more fire. Stepping towards the standard that Bakira has set with the fan engagement, but it was awesome today. It was so good, and it was cold. It was cold. Everybody was out there braving the chilly weather. Lots of down.
you actually mentioned that because the sun was moving towards where we were in the mic booth, and we had the barbecue and the beers set up, and then there's fan zone, and we kept looking back, and people were like, "Where is everybody?" And looked over, and they're all the way over on the other side of the hill,
in the
sunshine. So as soon as it hit the tent, we actually put the Beatles, "Here Comes the Song" on. I'm like, all right, everybody, back over to the fan zone. So let's get into this competition. If you could summarize it.
Fireworks.
Yeah.
All four categories. Yeah, it was awesome to see. Snowboard Women kicked it off, and they went so hard right out of the gate. It was so sick, just immediately, So if you haven't watched it yet, we had Tom Pfeiffer in the booth instead of Anna Smoothie. Couldn't make it. She's got to work. She's got a very important job out there on the side. Well, I guess actually this is on the side.
This
for
is
her.
the side gig.
Yeah, totally. But Anna couldn't make it, so we were able to recruit Tom Pfeiffer, former Freeride World Tour rider, pro skier, and
he competed on this face in 2022.
Twice.
Yeah, because he was on the Challengers, and then he got the wild card for it.
He won the 4-star, and then 2 weeks later,
he came in fourth place.
Fourth in the Freeride World Tour.
Landed, and had his airbag fly out. So it was a pretty fantastic voyage.
But yeah, it was great. Like Tom and I were the first category. It's always kind of setting the bar and setting the standard for the day, and the Snowboard Women just pounded it out. It was great to see them right out of the gate. While it was still cold, we were cold, and that definitely heated things up.
And having Tom in there for that, every time you get somebody new into a position like that, you're like, how are they going to do it? It's like he was made for it.
Oh, it was so good.
Because he's such good insight. He speaks really well. He filled in for you on one of the early Freeride World Tour podcasts, the original version of the Freeride Guide. And as soon as I heard that was happening, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. That makes all the sense in the world. And I think you guys both did a great job. And it was great because he would go into explaining the run or talk about the run, and you were just hanging out. I'm like, oh, Derek's actually taking a rest.
Yeah, that was great. Tom knew what he was looking at. He knew what he was doing. He delivered a great job. So the Snowboard Women, it was exciting. It was interesting, and we saw a real battle, especially up at the top. There were a couple riders that had, let's say, a tough time in the first event at Verbier. Erin Sauvé, to me, is one that really stood out. She struggled, and after such a dominant performance on the Challengers, going win, back-to-back three-peating, then came onto the Tour and had a tough one in Verbier. So it was really sick to see Erin on home soil come out swinging again, locked herself into a third place, a podium result. That puts her in a much better position towards the cut as we go to Georgia. So really cool to see the Rawson rider really kind of bringing the heat here and showing that it wasn't a fluke. I mean, 3 wins on the Challenger Tour, there's no way that's a fluke. But it was nice to see her bring it to the Tour.
No, absolutely. So top 3 in the Snowboard Women was Anna Martinez, Estelle Rizzolio. Anna Martinez with an 81.67, Estelle Rizzolio with a 78, and then Erin Sauvé with a 71.67. So there's a bit of a gap there between the top 3. So why don't we start with, say, Erin's run specifically. You guys posted a little interview with her on the broadcast, and one of her quotes was just, hey, I'm glad to be here. It's her home event. She lives just down the road in Roslyn. It's like a 3-hour drive or a couple-hour drive. And one of her things was, I just want to stay on my feet, just leading to harking back to what you just said. So she was the 4th person to drop. She actually dropped right behind Estelle Rizzolio, who ended up in 2nd place. And it was a good run. She won every Challenger event last year. And then the event in Verbier didn't do quite so well. It was one of the first kind of visual inspections she's had.
The first.
It was, yeah. And maybe a little nerves, maybe whatever it may have been. And I think having this at her home event may have been huge. Just what she needed to shake that off, get rid of it. Don't even worry about it anymore. It's a brand new game, a new event. And she had such a really good run. It was a fun run to me because it looked like she was just going for a pal lap.
Well, you know what? I think that had 2 factors. First of all, for sure, it's more fun to ride in the untracked snow. And I also think on a snowboard, especially with this rock hard crust underneath, if you can put yourself in the fresh snow with no tracks, you're way easier to stay in control edge to edge than chopping through tracks where, half of the turn might be kind of soft, and then half of the turn, or where it bellies out, you get into a track and you're on ice. It becomes way more inconsistent. So I think that was pretty savvy riding for Erin. And whether that was on purpose or whether she was going for the fun and just got the benefit of the of the actual better surface or better board handling ability of riding in the POW, but I'm going to call it savvy riding, savvy Sauvé.
Yeah, you saw the note I wrote here. You actually called her esotericism, the Foosism. I got to start bringing those back, the savvy Sauvé. But I was chuckling. I'm like, she's just shredding POW and having a good run on it. And she got a 71, so she dropped in actually right behind Estelle Rizzolio, who's had some success on this face as well. She was the 3rd to drop, and she had a really interesting run as well. A really good top air, slammed on the brakes because she was going straight for a tree. So I was like, I don't really know, but she actually turned it around really well.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give her credit for control. Mm-hmm. She tossed on the brakes. What I liked about that is a lot of times in tough snow, snowboarders, when they toss that heel side turn, they'll lose the edge, bounce off the butt, and pop back onto the board, and she didn't. She threw it sideways because she had to slow down or smash face first into a tree. Mm-hmm. So it had to happen, but it didn't cause her to lose control. She shut it down where she had to, got right back onto the center of the board and rallied, and a couple big airs for Estelle. It's so fun to watch her ride because she's just so aggressive, charging through the venues, and big, all of it was just awesome. And she sat in the hot seat for a while.
Yeah, so pretty impressive. And then Anna Martinez, the rookie on tour, what a run from her.
Oh, man. she went kind of riders left to right, and it was a little bit of a diagonal path along the face. All of it on her heel side edge, which is for sure for snowboarders the more challenging edge, right? You don't have as much control with your heels as you do with your toes. You don't have that like monkey grip that you can get with your toes on
Yeah.
on that front side edge.
Right.
And to see her do all of her biggest airs on the heel side, like backside turns, getting control heel side, taking off the heel side edge, just again and again and again, it was really, really impressive. She's so strong, and her handling of the board is so solid that, to me, I mean, and I think the judges agreed, like it was a clear victory for Ana Martinez.
Yeah, she had a really good pace too. On top of all that, good control, really fast pace, and she just hit a ton of features.
Yeah, stacked them up
more than everybody else, and that's what it takes. Like within the judging for these events, if you hit a little air, well, that's extra points. You hit another little air, well, that's extra points. They're not a lot of points, but they build up.
Line score matters, yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
She beat Estelle by 3.67 points, like basically 4 points.
Yep.
Right? How many of those little airs did she do?
Yeah, she stacked them up, and they weren't all little either. There, she had
exactly.
She had some hefty
she had some
ones,
big airs, but she had those little features down lower. So you get 2 points for each one of those. Well,
Yep.
There you go. Like every point counts, right? So that's really, really impressive and really smart riding. And I was talking, I was yelling at the crowd today about how whenever a rider ends up going down, well, if you don't lose your ski, or if you don't take your snowboard off, which never happens, but if you don't lose your ski, don't just give up. Continue to ride, because we have had a world champion decided by 20 points.
Yeah, so you want to salvage every single point you can get.
Right.
Keep her going.
In an event where you get thousands,
Yeah.
or tens of thousands in an event. So, keep going, right? If you screw up, doesn't matter. Just keep gaining some points, because it may make a difference down the road of, say you end up in, for Snowboard Women's, maybe end up in 4th rather than 6th, right? Or 5th rather than 7th. So, that just shows good riding, I guess.
Yeah, the good riders, they know how to do it, and they're so smart. So now Ana Martinez has put herself into a great spot in the overall ranking. She's sitting first by nearly 4,000 points over Estelle Rosolio, and then Nuria Caston-Baron with the big win in the first event, and then a rough one today. She's still in 3rd overall, so she's on the good side of the cut with another event to go, and I'm sure we'll see Nuria come back hot when we go to Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a really great way to get the event started. Then we moved into Snowboard Men, and this was a really, really close event. There were only 5 points separating 3rd place from 7th place. So that really shows.
Yeah, it was tight, and there were so many good runs. I mean, from 5th all the way to 1st, it was just so... Actually, from 6th, sorry, and even down to...
Even 7th, so yeah.
Right.
Like, between 7th place and 4th place, there's a 3-point gap. 7th place to 3rd place is a 4-point gap.
Yeah, it was tight, there were a lot of really good runs.
Super tight, really hard. Like in that middle chunk, it was really hard to say. I wouldn't want to have been judging this competition whatsoever. There were a couple runs, however, that did stand out above the rest. The gentleman who ended up on the podium, Timmy Schrader, which had an interesting run. He had a big 360 at the top.
Huge
360. He rode with a lot of speed. He found kind of a new line and then aired into that fresh landing. Got down into that kind of gully, slashing the wall. Like, it looked like he was just having a good time. Kind of the same thing as like Aaron Sauvé. I'm just going to go snowboarding for fun. So he rolls into the finish line, and his pants are shredded. Like ripped apart.
Yeah, a huge hole in his pants. On the broadcast when we were watching on the screen, we saw a big hole in his pants, and then as he got closer to the camera, also his base layer ripped open and a bunch of blood on his leg. So clearly a tree reached for him, but we didn't even see where it happened. I didn't see any tree contact. I mean, obviously it happened. It ripped his pants, his long johns, and his leg.
Yeah, I went back and watched it. I couldn't see where it was, and then I didn't realize it had happened until I saw him after the award ceremony, and it had all like duct taped up. And
he must have been so cold with his skin out on his leg.
It had it all duct taped up, and there's this big giant gaping hole in his pant leg. I'm like, what happened there? And then watching it on here, he's actually making jokes about it. It's like flapping in the wind. So an adventurous run from Timmy for sure, and he's had a couple good events in a row.
Yeah, for sure. Tim Schroeder, as a rookie, he's solid, and it's been a bit of a battle for him, getting into the Freeride World Tour. But now that he's here, he is sitting strong, and he's in second place overall, which is fantastic for a rookie. A really, really good start.
Absolutely. So the top 3 snowboard men in the overall rankings for the season so far after 2 events are actually the same 3 who podiumed at this event. In second place, Michael Mann, no stranger to the podium, the Freeride World Tour. And when he dropped in, one of the things that we've talked about is just how technically sound he is as a rider. That guy does not put his board in the wrong spot. He knows exactly where he is. He knows exactly how to maneuver his board within that spot, and he proved it again today with it was a classic Michael Mann run.
Yeah, precision with the board placement on the snow. The contact points, the edge angles, all of it was just absolutely dialed. And I loved this run. It was so strong right off the top with that 360. Over the rocks, just backing yourself because there's a bunch of cliffs below, and if it doesn't go right, you're gonna be wishing it had. But Michael Mann just fully backing himself with that big one, and then he just kept it going. Tom and I talked a little bit about this might be a slightly better day for long and lows rather than the big hucks, because a lot of
explain long and lows.
Well, yeah, so it's where your takeoff angle is slightly downsloped, and it matches the angle of the landing. Mm-hmm. So you're traveling a long way off sometimes a smaller feature, but there's not a lot of impact when you land because you're connecting rather than impacting into the ground.
Right.
And looking at the snow conditions and the fact that under the powder it was really hard, we kind of thought that might be the play today. And Michael Mann just executed on that
just so you perfectly. Can kind of land like an airplane rather than drop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't plummet down into the ground off something vertical, but it's
a smooth transition.
Takeoff angle and your landing angle kind of match. And so Michael, I got to give him a lot of credit for his scoping, because he found a couple of those and managed to add tricks to them, which is just incredible. And the board handling, all of it, that run from Michael Mann was spectacular. And honestly, on many other days on the Freeride World Tour, that would have been a gold medal. But there is a man in the mix this year who is so far completely unstoppable. Victor De La Rue, what a monster.
It picks up right where he left off, hey?
Yeah.
Like that massive double at the top, straight into the big 360, just tons of speed. It's like, well, this is my place. My name's De La Rue. You know what we do.
Yeah, and you couldn't almost pick 2 venues that are further apart in their characteristics,
more different, right? Or more different.
From the Petit Bec de Ross in Verbier to T1 South, the Bec smooth, relatively soft, really steep, kind of classic big mountain. This totally different. It's rugged at the top, but Victor he picked a line that looked so difficult and he made it look so easy, which is kind of his hallmark. That's what he does. He makes the impossible look easy. He's so good. The ability to scope that line and then execute that enormous double off the top, and even the airplane turn to get himself set up for that was so consequential. And there was just not even a hair out of place. It looked effortless. But watching it, it didn't look easy, if you know what I mean. He's just so good. He's so strong, and he's comfortable at speed. He's comfortable with the tricks. He's comfortable in the gnar. There's not really anything he can't do.
There's that one top air. So he dropped in, you cruise that little shelf, and then turn and point kind of over the traverse line. So we had a bunch of people hit that before. Christopher Trudell famously hit that perfectly a couple of years ago. This year, a few of the skiers did, but Victor was the first one to launch into that. I think he was the only snowboarder to take that direct route.
Yeah, I think so too.
Straight over kind of the traverse line, and it's big. We were talking earlier. It was bigger this year, so you had to go a little bit farther in order to hit that transition because there are rocks. There's some pepper in the landing as well. So yeah, Victor De La Rue just doing what he does, man.
Nailed it. Yeah, absolutely nailed it. And we saw again as we get out of the podium conversation, Warren Doyle, Hugo Sura, Liam Rivera, all of those guys, Stenner and Cody Bramwell, all delivered great runs, like really strong. I loved, watching Warren just popping those big tricks in the middle of his line. This kid is for real. Like, he's new on the tour. He's a rookie this year, and he's just finding his feet. Once he gets used to what's going on, the pressure and all the stuff around it, I think Warren Doyle is going to be a huge threat.
Right. It's a really tight middle ground. Like, that center group, especially for this competition, really, really, really tight. The overall, as I said, the same three that podiumed today are the same three that are top of the rankings. Victor De La Rue, way out front with 20,000 points.
Oh yeah, he's running away with it right now.
Timmy Schroeder,
he says.
Timmy Schroeder, 12,800 points, and then Michael Mann bringing up the rear with 9,675. So there's a lot of opportunity for that middle group. It looks like, unless Victor De La Rue has some big problems, he's already got a big fat lead. But there are 3 more competitions in the year. So
that's right, and there's more points on offer in the finals at Fieberbrunn and Verbier. So definitely, it's not a done deal yet, but he's definitely making it harder for the other riders because he can go on cruise control now. He's making the cut for sure.
So the cut is after the next event in Georgia, the brand new event in Georgia, and then once you get to Fieberbrunn, are they running the two run format again?
They sure are.
Fantastic. Hopefully they can do 2 next year rather than hold the Challenger like they did last year. And then Verbier. And are the points doubled, or are they?
No, they're about 1.5. Yeah, so it is more points on offer for finals, and that 2-run format. The last time we actually got to see it happen, the Snowboard Men's field was probably the one that benefited from the most. We saw both BMO, Blake Moeller, and Cody Bramwell go down hard in their first runs and then come back just with like hefty runs and go 1-2 with the second run scores. So they get 2 runs and only the best score counts. So it's kind of cool to get another opportunity where and there's so much strategy comes into it. Are you going to do the same thing again? Are you going to pick something different? Lots of options for action on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Format. And you know what, guys like Cody Bramwell, that was a beer, everyone. Yeah, there you go.
I was trying to hide it.
You're trying to hide it. It's all right. So like Cody Bramwell today, it's good to see him back and put down a decent run. He was rolling through the course, and I was like, Cody's known for his backflips, and right on cue, launched that big backflip into the chute there. I thought he may have been underscored a little bit. But like I said, I'm glad I'm not a judge. Everything was so close that I couldn't, off the short views that I've had, I'd have to look at them again, but that's just off the top of my head. So I'm not a judge. I'm sure there's always discussion depending on, what category it is. Judging is always a conversation, right?
For sure. And it's,
especially when you're that close and that tight to all those different riders. It's like, well, my run was better than his, but you guys are only like a point apart. So, how do you? Yes, maybe, or maybe not.
At the end of the day, it's a judge sport. You're asking people to watch you ride and tell you how cool they thought your run was and rank it against your friends. I mean, that's really the end of the day. That's all this is. And the people that are doing it are the best possible people that we could have doing it. They're so experienced, both as athletes and as judges. They know exactly what they're looking at, and they know exactly what they're looking for. So we can disagree. It doesn't matter. Their results are what they are. But I think that we put the faith in them that they're going to get it right, and that's what they do. And I have faith.
Right on. Well, let's move on to Ski Women. Another great competition. Really, there's a couple breakout performances today. Before we get into like the podiums, there's a couple things that I really enjoyed. Lily Bradley with a run full of spraffies and spread eagles. That was a good time.
Lily is so sick. Like every time you're around her, you're better off for it. Sorry, around them. Them. Lily Bradley has let everyone know that they prefer the they/them. So we will do our best not to botch that.
So I did a podcast with her on the Low Pressure podcast. It hasn't been released yet, and I asked her about that because you said that she told you right before right before the competition, you and Anna, and you guys were like, just kind of struggling with it because
It's tricky.
Right.
It's tricky.
And then you told her and she laughed. She's like, you know what? I love it. As long as someone's willing to try and are open to it, doesn't matter. Thank you for trying. If you get it wrong, whatever.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I appreciate you.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm so psyched to see Lily this year because she tore her ACL right before, like, on comp day in Bakira last year, an hour, 20 minutes before they were supposed to start hiking, which was just heartbreaking for everyone because Lily's just fantastic to be around. I love the way they ride. But we're only a year out post-surgery. Mm-hmm. It's not that long, and these things don't heal fast. I mean, Lily's young, so she's got the benefit of, a bit of superhuman healing, but man, today Lily did not look like someone recovering from knee surgery. They were pounding big spraffy. They hit that huge air in the middle, which looked like a heavy impact. Took it, rolled on like a boss, and then went full Tahoe, channeling Shane McConkey with the spread eagles and the spraffies, and it was just a joy to watch. Yeah, so that was definitely pretty fun. Another note, like Zuza Wittek, I always mess it up. Vitek. She dominated last week with the highest score ever in a ski women's event, and she looked a little out of place this week. She looked like she was struggling through that run a little bit. I think. Yeah, it looked tough. I mean, she had some trouble with the snow. She just wasn't looking like she was fully on her game. And for Zuza, she's in a great spot. She's got a win under her belt. She's making the cut almost guaranteed. I mean, there's obviously mathematical possibilities. And at the end of today in the overall, her and Astrid are tied now, which is kind of incredible that her and Astrid had the same combo of a win and kind of one that wasn't so great. But I have no concerns about Zuzana Vitek. She's going to come back hot when we go to Georgia. We know it's in there. A huge part of this is it your day?
Right.
Is it your day? Because there's not a single person on the start list in any category that can't win one of these events if it's their day. The stars have to align. You got to be feeling good. The mental game on point. And for Zuza, and then you have to be lucky too, or at least not unlucky.
Right.
And there were definitely a few of those today. So yeah, Zuza not having her day today, but no worries that she's gonna come back strong.
Right on. Well, the top four. Well, Lily Bradley came in fourth. Zuza was in fifth place, so she didn't have a terrible day, right? But it just comparatively to that just spectacular showing, it wasn't quite there. But like you said, so top three. A very familiar name, Hedvig Vessel, with a hot run. Like, what a competition, the top three. So that air we were just talking about that Victor put in, she boosted that and stomped. She came out, one ski got a little way, but she's so strong that, boom, right back in. Although, I was talking to Maxime Chablot recently, and he says sometimes he will do that just to make sure that he does land. So if you go through and stomp, sometimes you're going to get bucked, but sometimes you go through, you need to release a little bit of pressure, and by like whipping out a ski and then bringing yourself over top of it enables him to do that, which is a really neat perspective that I never thought about. He's like, yeah, like you can go down and you can have this vertical compression, or you can go down and kind of release a bit of pressure if you're able to by like bringing a ski out. You don't have to put any other body parts down, and then you can bring yourself in.
That's ninja shit. That is just next level to be thinking about that when you're landing, when you're taking an impact, to be able to release like a little pressure release valve out to the side.
Yeah. But it kind of looks like that is almost what Hedvig did.
Well, she is certainly in tune with her body and her skis, and that was the biggest air in the ski women's field by a mile.
Yeah.
She went so hard off the top and was just charging. It was a solid run. It was vintage Hedvig. Like, kick it off, get the judges by the throat right out of the gate with that air. And it was cool to see all the Scandies hit the same thing. They're like,
all the peak performance Scandies. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. They study together, they ride together, they choose their lines together. And Hedvig was the one to open it up of that whole crew. And for sure, Christopher and Carl up at the top watched that and were like, oh yeah, it's on.
Yeah, because they had hit that a couple of years ago. And they're like, oh, thanks, Hedvig.
Well, yeah, and it was super different then.
You just showed us that it's still good to go. But she had just speed and control, another big air in the middle, and just classic Hedvig run.
Yeah, and then in second place with the silver medal, another second. That's 2 in a row for this young lady, a rookie on the tour. She lost her season last year to injury, peak performance rider Manon Lowski. Incredible. I can't remember a 360 and a backflip in a ski women's run ever. So she is literally pioneering. And what I loved about Manon is in Verbier, she went pure freeride. Big hucks, huge airs, full speed. And here she's got those 2 huge freestyle elements. She's kind of put all her cards on the table now. She's like, hey, guess what, everyone? I can do all of it. All of it. And what a show. I mean, she's a rookie with 2 finishes, and she's never finished lower than second place on the Freeride World Tour with 2 starts.
Absolutely. It kind of harkens back to like Molly Armanino last year, a couple second places to start the season off.
Crushing.
So before we can kind of continue on, like her run was like technical and massive and like really, really impressive. It kind of like, who does she remind you of? Like ski wise, who can you relate to her to? Like I she takes a little bit of this person and a little bit of that person, a little bit of that person, like the best components, and puts them all together.
Yeah, I don't have one person that she reminds me of. The way she is in the air reminds me of certain freestylers, but her ski technique and this full send off the big cliffs. I mean, it was like a chameleon. Mm-hmm. Like we saw a different person in Verbier than we saw today, and that's the same person. And for the rest of the ski women's field, that's got to be scary, because when you show that full package of different, like vastly different skill sets, that you can just show up to a venue and be like, this one's that. Yeah. And then deliver it at the absolute highest level. That is lethal in this sport. And she's just so good. So I'm a Manon fan for sure. I'm a fan on.
Nice. She get t-shirts made.
Yeah.
And in top spot, Astrid Chalus, who opened up that big backflip. We hadn't seen a backflip in ski women's event in a long time.
Well, stomped one, because Justine did one in Verbier, but didn't quite put it down.
Thank you for correcting me. So, watching the Forerunners the other day, we saw that lip. That someone hit that lip. There's that tree down at the bottom. We saw that lip. I was honestly kind of shocked and disappointed at the lack of people that actually utilized that as an extra feature. So Astrid came through, great run, kind of skied some real good falling at the top, hit a big cliff, and just kind of held on. Like it looked like she had
she had to fight for it.
She looks like she has like the strongest core of anybody I've ever met in my life. Like she was, I even yelled that on the mic. I'm like, oh, that's some core strength right there. Yeah. She came through, managed to stay on her skis, and fought to get back over top of them. Got back in control and skied her line. I wouldn't say it was any better than anyone else that line. It wasn't memorable. She got through it, she got it done, but then cruising down to the bottom, started to slow down a little bit. I'm like, oh, she's going to that tree. It's not an aspen tree, but we nicknamed it Astrid's Aspen, because when you open up a new zone, you get to name it.
Sure.
So she's going to that one lone tree there, and then boom, perfect.
Yeah, couldn't have been better.
Absolutely perfect backflip. Stomps, rolls into the finish line. The crowd absolutely loses their minds. It was so cool to see.
Yeah, that run was so epic. Astrid is kind of known for high speed riding. That's her style. She's pinned, but she's another one like Manon, and really like a lot of the young riders on tour that they've grown up skiing without any limits, without any boundaries. There's no, oh, that's for boys or that's for girls. Like, yeah, we do backflips, we do 360s, we fly off cliffs. And so Astrid opening up that feature with that backflip, it was inspiring, absolutely inspiring. And I can guarantee that a ton of young freeriders around the world watched that and were like, hell yeah, that's what I want to do. And it's real cool for Astrid because she's young, she's very, she's fresh on the tour. She's recently out of juniors. 2021 junior world champion. So she's just coming up into this adult world, and she's just showed everybody what a boss she is. And it was really, really sick to see her just lace it like that.
Absolutely. And her and Manon are really good friends, both French riders. And then Manon probably watched her do that and was like, oh, I'm hitting that too.
Oh, totally. And you know that the two of them scoped that together and were like, oh, should we flip that? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And both of them did it so well. And the stoke, I mean, you said it from the crowd, but from them, you know, Astrid was already in the hot seat when Manon came in, and it was like the full tackle dog pile. It looked like a junior comp. I was like, oh, this is what it's all about. Like, the spirit of it was so sick.
Right, and we hadn't mentioned this, but by now you should know, like, you can, as we're talking about this, if you happen to be in front of your computer, go to the Freeride World Tour website, and you can go and click on every rider's individual run, and it'll go right there. We're actually doing it as we speak. For those of you watching on YouTube, we're looking at the website. We're looking at some notes that I've made. And the Ski Women current rankings could not be closer. Manon Loshi in first place with 16,000 points. Astrid Chalus with 14,095. And Zuzana, 1495, as you mentioned. So, you know, we're just under 2,000 separating first, second, and third.
Yeah, it's so tight. And then, you know, right behind, you've got Hedvig Vessel. She's just lurking there, waiting for her time. She's definitely well above the cut. She's poised, she's positioned, and she's going to get herself into finals and then continue, I think, on this upward trajectory. Molly Armanino and Lily Bradley, both on the good side of the cut. And then we've got a few riders who need to get to work if they want to make it on to the other side of the cut. Sybille Blanchon, the Verbier rider, Lydia, Addie, Megan Baton. You know, those girls they're in tough right now because the points gap at the cut line from Lily to Sybille is pretty big. You know, it's nearly 2,000 points in it right now with one event to go. So Lily Bradley sitting on the uphill side, Sybille Blanchon sitting on the downhill side. You know, nobody on that downside of the cut wants to have to go back to the challengers. Obviously, that's the path you take if you get cut. But right now, those women are going to be looking at Georgia for a win. And I think I think we can all expect that we're going to see some heavy moves when we get to Georgia.
And we don't really know what's going to happen because nobody's skied there yet. It's an unknown. So it's not like, hey, we're going to this resort that I can watch 4 or 5 years of comps and say, okay, on this snow year, this is where people were riding, or this is where, and this is going to suit me. They have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So it's like everybody's on the same playing field.
I love that. I love that, especially for the cut comp, that there's nobody's got an advantage. To the tour veterans don't have that, 10 years of riding the same face to know I'm going to do exactly this, and that. Everybody's going in blind. Everybody's going in on a totally level playing field, obviously not on points, but in terms of preparation. So it's so exciting to have that coming up for the cut event. I think it's just going to be an absolute blast.
Fantastic. All right, then we finish off with Ski Men, which once again was pretty impressive. When you got here, we were talking about it, and based on our recollection of the event, looking at the ranking order, we weren't really sure if that was what it should be, or that's what our opinion of what happened was. We watched it again, and to be honest with you, it was kind of right there, kind of what we expected, or kind of what it was. So where do you want to start with that? Actually, let's start at the start. So with our wild card, our good friend Stan Ray, who was here on the show. So Stan pulled bib number one.
That's so heavy for
number one. So first not even like first visual inspection, or first ever free ride competition.
Yeah.
And oh my God, did he ever look like he belongs here?
He sure did. He set the tone.
Holy smokes.
Right out of the gate. He went so fast immediately. He was in the air before you could blink. And then, cross court, he hit that lip that we saw get quite a bit of play later.
Big 360.
Oh, man.
And then he went into a zone that only 2 people skied today. He opened up this zone a couple years ago. Camille Armand opened up this one cliff. A lot more snow that year.
A lot more.
Where you could air into this pocket and out. A lot less snow this year. Last, it was Camille Armand. It was
Turdell
and Max Palm.
Max Palm.
So Stan goes over into this zone and gets into this technical little spot. Ends up getting to the top. Little bunny hop. Scott Schmidt style turn onto a shelf and then launches into the pocket. And the snow is probably the only place there was deep snow on that whole thing. Before he even had a chance to touch the bottom, his skis were off and he was full tomahawk.
Oh yeah, flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping. And he said after, he's like, I set my legs to land on ice,
right,
and was so surprised when they punched through. He punched through the powder, he broke the crust, all through the sugar, right down to the base of the snowpack, and his legs stopped instantly, and he just got set onto a violent ride. I mean,
we're laughing now because we know he's fine. We've hung out, we've chatted with him many times today since. But I don't know who said it. It might have been I don't know if it was you or if it was Brian Metzler, but that is going to be
Brennan.
Oh yeah, Brett. Sorry, did I say Brian? I've been ruining people's names all day. Brennan Metzler was like, that is going to be a highlight that we're going to be seeing for many, many years.
Years to come. Yeah, Stan Ray, I mean, a wild card is a gamble for the Freeride World Tour. You know, they look at film parts, maybe they look at Instagram followers, and they go, oh yeah, I guess, you know, this could be a good one. Stan Ray backed up that wild card decision in spades. He went out so hard. I'd love to know where that run would have put him if he had landed it, because it was hot fire run for Stan Ray. Unfortunately, coming extremely unglued, the full yardie at the bottom.
Lost his GoPro, ripped off his head.
Yeah, he was just flipping. But man, it was such a great way to start the category, obviously minus the crash, but it definitely set the tone for what was to come.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because, you know, in my mind, looking at this, he could have been, based on that run and seeing the other runs, he could have been on the podium, he could have been fourth, kind of somewhere around there. But that run could have completely altered the standard for the judging for that competition, right?
For sure.
Because it's all done on like basically the first person to drop is what all the rest of them are kind of judged as a basis points on.
Yeah, it sets the bar.
Right? So there's a good chance that he could have set that bar and been a little higher.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't know. So it's a bit of a bummer, but super awesome that he was here for it. Super awesome that he pulled that off. I so wish he had landed.
Yeah.
Well, he landed.
Well, he certainly landed, and then his head landed, and then his feet, and then his head again, and then his feet.
I wish his skis stayed on, but what a great run. And he has such a good attitude about it that he's like, oh man, it is what it is. He's laughing. He's having fun. It's a story to tell.
And he's proud of it. He's proud of what he did. He showed up here as again, I said, as a wild card, so it's a gamble for the Freeride World Tour. He's certainly proud of his performance, as he should be. I think we're all proud of Stan for putting that down.
Absolutely, because he did not look out of place, and he actually looked sharper than a lot of the riders.
Yeah,
today.
he looked like a player in this field, which is great. That's what you want out of a wild card.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a good it was a really good way to start. And then, you know, in the ski men's, kind of right in the middle of the pack, Christopher Turdell at a 79, all the way up to, say, you know, Valentin Rayner in fourth at 87. You know, we were looking at those, and they're all very, very similar runs. Very solid technically. Like, everybody put their run down, skied fast, did what they wanted to do. And I guess it's just a matter of, well, is this feature worth more than this feature? Is that trick worth more than this trick? And I think that's really what it came down to with the judging, because, you know, we weren't really sure what the order should be. We watched it again and said, okay, actually, you know what? We think the judges got it right.
Yeah, it's funny watching it in the booth. I came out and was like, the results are whack. Like, and then I rewatched and was like, oh no, that's actually pretty accurate. I mean, from Christopher Turdell in 8th all the way up to Vali Rayner in 4th, there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it. The point spread is so tight, and 7 guys above 80 points. And Christopher, I mean, you can almost slot him in there at 79 even. But 7 guys in the 80s and above, I mean, that's a testament to the strength of this field, that all of them put down banging runs, and the judges had to work to differentiate them, for sure. It was such a high level. You know, there was even a little interview with Max Palm on the broadcast just about the level right now and about how intense it is. And even though we're dealing with a little bit of powder on top of a hard crust, we know everybody's going to go completely balls to the wall, and we weren't disappointed.
No, and you know, speaking of Max Baum, he had a pretty rough day, but he ended up skiing down with his helmet in his hands.
Oh, and then he almost died.
Oh yeah, he got right near the end. He got a little bit.
Yeah, a little forward over that roller, and he's got his helmet in his hand and pitching forward like, no!
Don't. Always an adventure. Oh, always interesting with Max. But let's talk about the podiums here. Hometown, I guess home country rider, Marcus Gauguin, the guy whose every run is an absolute adventure. I say that word a lot, but this time I actually mean it. Once again, just does what Marcus does. He did 3 massive 360s before he even got halfway through his run.
Yeah, the first one off that shelf, I mean, he had the billy goat line down to the takeoff. He came out of a turn, landed with his skis in the fall line, and I don't think he was even on the ground for a ski length before he was spinning over all of those rocks. The precision that he's able to place his feet and then take off again, and not just take off, but take off with a trick. And then, as you said, across the mountain, big 360, another big 360, and then going even further over than Stan. It was just so cool to watch Marcus. And imagine getting a 91.33 and finishing third. I mean,
yeah, that's right. 3 ski men were in the 90s. 3 in the 90s is pretty awesome. Last event we had 2 female skiers in the 90s. Like this year, the level's been raised yet again.
Yeah, I loved Marcus's last air. You know, we were.
So he went. So what we mentioned was Stan. Sorry to interrupt you. Is Stan went into that zone? The only other person to go in that zone was Marcus, and he actually took a completely different route, which I don't think we've seen before.
I haven't seen anybody go that far over, and he went, a full cliff band further over to the skier's left than Stan. He had to air into his takeoff, and I give Marcus a ton of credit for the scoping because that was one of the steepest landings on this venue. He connected perfectly with the ground. It was big.
And it was the same level.
Yeah, right at the same elevation.
As Stan's.
But I think his landing was steeper.
And exactly. It was same level. So, depending on what the weather does and how it affects the snow. But Stan's was in that pocket, a little bit flatter. And Marcus is just at the other side of that cliff band. And a little cross court.
It was perfect. He hit the angle perfect, and you got to do that on the setup move. There was that little air onto the shelf and again off. So the angle has to happen on the takeoff of the setup move, and he nailed it. So Marcus Gauguin just bringing the fireworks again, putting himself on the podium and jumping himself way up back on the good side of the cut, just like he did last year. He missed missed the first event, crashed in the second one, and then podium at Kicking Horse and putting himself right in the conversation.
I was wondering because he wasn't able to go through the front of the corral. He had to traverse back in front of the crowd. We had everybody cheering and yelling for him. And then he had to sneak in this side. And I was like, I don't know. Are you going to have to hike up and go around? Are they going to allow that?
So in the riders meeting, they left little doors open on either side of the corral. And they said, if you go way out that side or way out that side, you can come into the corral on the side door. We're not going to penalize you for it. So yeah, he knew that was open as an option for him.
There's the door right there.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see.
And there's Max with his helmet in his hand. But yeah, because we were like, oh, is he going to get in trouble for that? Are they going to dock him points for that? Because, things like that have happened in the past where they're like, well, those aren't the rules, So it's good to see that him put that down, especially here on home soil. 2 years in a row, he's on the podium here.
At Kicking Horse.
And then another guy, did Oscar podium here before?
No, Oscar Menden had a real unfortunate crash here last year, so he was on a redemption hunt. And he crashed here last year. He crashed in Verbier a couple of weeks ago. So Oscar Menden was hungry for it. He was another one on the bad side of the cut. He was way down there with a no score after the first event, and Oscar Menden went out hard. The backflip might have been the move of the day. Yeah,
he's kind of a sleeper pick. He's not the biggest name. He's not the flashiest guy, but he is lethal. I think he's one of the more underrated riders on this tour.
Yeah.
And like you said, he hit that backflip in the middle of his run, probably the biggest of the day.
I think so, for sure, yeah. And you can't sleep on Oscar Menden. Well, what it tends to be, at least, in my opinion with Oscar, is he's checkers or wreckers. He doesn't often do a blah run. He either is on the podium or he's exploding. There's kind of no middle ground for Oscar, and that backflip that we saw from him today is a total testament to that. I mean, that was enormous. And his approach to it was so sick. Like, he went through a real tech zone. He did a big air, redirected, and then pounded off that thing, tossed the backflip, bolts. Like, it was perfect. And then weaving his way through the maze below, it was just...
To another big zone, into a new spot. Like, there's a big air, here's another big air, and the giant backflip to the parking lot.
Yeah, so clean, so strong, and keeping it pinned, keeping it under control. He managed to get another air, which was a kind of a savvy move. That one, his lower air had a weird takeoff, and we saw the riders that executed that one well actually pull their feet up at the lip instead of pressing into it and popping off it. They kind of absorbed it because it was a flat deck takeoff and the ground dropped really away. So if you popped, you just sail out into the trees. And Oscar just picking his feet up, getting light where it needed to be light, and it was executed so well. There was definitely in the Instagram post that the Freeride World Tour did congratulating Max on the win, there was quite a bit of chatter in the comments that people were thinking maybe Oscar had it. Obviously the judges know what they're looking for, know what they're looking at. So 92.67 for Oscar versus Hitzig's 94. But I mean, let's dig into that Hitzig run because it was classic Max.
Freeride robot.
Yeah, I heard you say that actually on the on the podium ceremony, and I think he's embracing it.
I told him I check in with him. I'm like, I'm gonna call you the Freeride robot again. He's like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
but I think it's a rad. Look, like we're watching his run right now. He starts off with a big air, and then he goes into this massive 360, and nothing's ever out of place with this guy. It's as if it was programmed in. This is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, this is why we call him the robot,
and it's exactly what I think he plans to do with no variation. It's like, I bet you if he did that run again, it would look exactly the same.
Yes, but also no, because in his winner's interview on the broadcast, he said he missed his line and had to wing some of it. So imagine being that good where you're winging it. You're just like, oh, I guess I'll go off here. And I mean, it was after the 360 where he said he just got a little bit drawn offline, and he made it look like it was part of the programming. It just was so perfectly executed. There was never a foot out of place. He's so solid. He's so strong. And it doesn't look forced ever with Hitzig. It looks smooth, which is so difficult to do when the snow's hard, when you're doing these superhuman moves. I mean, this guy him and Victor De La Rue are running away with it right now. In the overall, like Hitzig has got a commanding lead in the ski men's category right now with 2 wins. He's sitting on 20,000 points. Turdell in the overall in second, 7,000 points behind Max Hitzig. He is on fire. And then the Kiwi Ben Richards with a great performance today in the top 3.
It's right in that middle group that we were just discussing.
Yeah.
That it could, all separated, 4 or 5 guys separated by 4 points. Could have gone either way. So he had a really great run, and it was speed.
Yeah, he was fast.
Fast and like big airs, really solid, and he just pinned it to the finish line. I think he finished. It seemed like he was done in like 4 seconds.
What impresses me about Ben Richards' riding, obviously the speed is exciting and impressive, but he's precise at speed. Mm-hmm. He kind of reminds me of Turdell in that way, where he's hauling ass, but his foot placement is so precise, it puts him exactly where he wants to be. There's never like, oh, I'm accidentally getting drawn over here or pulled by the fall line or gravity or whatever. His placement and the strength and skill that it takes to have that placement is so precise that he always looks like he's going exactly where he means to go, which in this world is everything. And, it's paying off now for him. Ben Richards sitting in 3rd overall.
As a rookie, behind Max Hitzig and the legendary Christopher Turdell, who I looked the other day, and I think between 2018 and this year, with the exception of last season, he never finished lower than 4th overall. Yeah,
I mean, he's just...
like if I was saying on the mic today, if there was a Freeride World Tour Hall of Fame, Victor De La Rue is in there.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Turdell is in there.
For sure, yeah. I mean,
first ballot Hall of Famers.
Multi-time Tour champions, and coming in this year with a wild card after getting sick last year and being very vocal, on social media and just in socially about how the new guard has really got his number, and he feels like his time on this tour has passed, and sitting in second overall now, next to just behind a dominant Max Hitzig. So there was a bit of a shakeup in the overall there. We had some riders that didn't do so great in the last event really rise up. Marcus Gogan, to me, and Valley Rayner are two of those guys that are now on the good side of the cut. Hitzig obviously putting a stamp on it. Same with Turdell, sitting way high up there. Finn Billis still in the top 5. Carl Regner Eriksson in striking distance. Tenla in 6. We got a bunch of young rookies in the mix. And then down the hill a little bit, we've got Wei Tian Ho just on the bad side of the cut, but not by much. He's just behind Maxime Chablot. And then a bunch of Stars and Stripes, Kendall Goodman, Dylan Flinders, A. Paul, all having a tough day today.
Yeah. So, there's a lot. There's a lot to go. There's a lot to come. A lot happened. Today was a lot of fun. Yeah. I'm glad. It was great to see it happen. We've been doing it for a few years now. It's just last week's event we talked about. It was so nice to have a really nice snow.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, little shallow. It's shallow everywhere in North America. That's no surprise. A few more trees than the last time, but it doesn't really matter. When you are the best skiers and riders in the world, you just adapt.
They rise to the occasion.
And you do what you do, right? So that was a pretty exciting competition. The next window is in 2 weeks in Georgia, March 1st to March 7th. I know it takes about 48 hours or 2.5 days to travel there. So it's going to be a bit of a mission. It's a hill that nobody knows, which we talked about, which is going to be exciting. You're going to be there. I'd like to go. I don't know. I think it's dropped down to about 30-70 whether I make it or not. And I'm hoping that Georgia's got some good Wi-Fi where they're at. So, because if we're gonna have to do this
we'll see if we're doing it with a tin can and a string tied to it across the Atlantic.
You'll just have to we'll just do it over the phone, and I'll get it transcribed. I'll get a stenographer there, and just we'll have someone else come in and read it, and we'll just play act it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Georgia Pro. I think it's going to be really exciting. In all 4 categories, we've got some riders that need a big result. We've got some riders that are sitting nice and pretty, way up high in the standings, and a little bit of everything in between. That place has been getting dumped on all winter long. They have so much snow. The Freeride World Tour team, guides and safety crew left today to go to Georgia to start securing the face, because they know it's going to be a project. Obviously, with a ton of snow, there's going to be some work to do to make sure it's safe for the riders. So they want a full 2-week window to get on that, to start putting some bombs in key places and figuring out exactly what the snowpack is looking like.
Have you seen the venue?
I haven't.
Not a picture of it.
No, I haven't seen anything of it. So I know those pictures are out there, and to be honest, I've been pretty focused on this one.
Yeah.
But as we roll out of Kicking Horse and on to Georgia, all eyes are going to be on this next event. It is the cut, so there's a lot at stake for riders. There's riders moving on to finals, and there's riders who are going to be heading to the Challenger Series to take on the riders who are popping up out of the qualifiers, and that's a huge battle. Those young guns are hungry coming up from the qualifiers, and they want to take on these cut tour riders and see how they stack up against them. Sometimes, some categories, you see the cut tour riders go to the Challengers and go right back to the tour because they prove their worth and that they're clearly still at a level that's a cut above the qualifier riders, but some of them are able to pop through and take down those big names. So we're going to see how that plays out when we go to Georgia. Keep it coming with the backslap emails.
All right, let's read one real quick here. We got a couple good ones, but we've actually got some reviews on the podcast app. So make sure that you follow, subscribe on the podcast app you're listening to right now. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube LPP channel. But here's a couple reviews on Apple Podcasts. So does this mean we're a real sport now? Great host energy and chemistry. Love the email segment. Can't wait to see what you guys cover other than the FWT. So, we were planning on maybe doing Kings and Queens. There's natural selection coming out. We'll kind of see how it goes. We've only been doing this for less than a month now. This is our 8th episode. So it's
a lot of episodes in a month.
Yeah. So when when they announced that they were changing the T1, we ran into each other at the bottom of the mountain the other day on Whistler, and we were both like, yeah, we're not doing that one. Yeah, we're doing that one. So that was from Chemist, CHEMI 5T. So thanks for that note. And then this one is from Fargwen. Great to hear athlete commentary and also taking listener questions. I'm a new subscriber and will follow the tour action. Well, that's really exciting. And I met a bunch of people today and yesterday this week that were like, oh, the Freeride Guide or the Freeride World Tour. I love hearing about it. We listen to it in the car when we drive. It's great. And I was like, hey, thank you. Like, what do you got to say? What do you need from us? Like, no, you're doing a good job. So I think that's pretty cool what we're doing. We love that you are a part of it. Keep sending your emails, send in your questions. If you have any questions about this comp, if you have any, opinions about this comp, any questions about what's happening in Georgia, anything that has to do with Freeride World Tour or Freeride in general, you want to slap us on the back, or maybe we backslapped on a point.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it. Backslap at freerideguyepodcast.com is the email. You can find me at Low Pressure Podcast or at Redmark. You're at Foose on Instagram.
Yes, sir.
And you can find it, The Freeride Guide on Instagram. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We got to get to dinner, and we're going to go party tonight.
Hell yeah.
Derek's got his party shirt on now. Thanks, everybody.
All right, we'll see you in Georgia.
This has been a Redmark Media production.